Commander G1 Park stood at the massive viewport of Galactic Trade Station Omega-7, watching ships from dozens of alien worlds dock at the station's countless ports. Each vessel brought representatives from different species across the galaxy. Today was the most important day in human history, though G1 had no idea how badly it would go. She adjusted her crisp blue uniform one last time and walked toward the main conference hall. The sound of her boots echoed in the empty corridor. In just 1 hour, she would represent all of humanity before the Galactic Culinary Council. This ancient organization decided which foods were safe and valuable across 47 different worlds. For 300 years, aliens had traded recipes, ingredients, and cooking methods through this council. Now, for the first time, humans had been invited to present their cuisine. G1 felt proud. She thought this invitation meant other species finally respected humanity. She was very wrong. The conference hall was enormous. A dome-shaped ceiling showed the stars outside, and hundreds of seats arranged in circles faced a central platform. Alien representatives filled most of the seats already. G1 saw the tall, crystal-like Vextar delegates glowing with soft blue light. The gaseous Nephilim floated in special containment suits that looked like walking clouds. Dozens of other species sat in groups, chattering in languages that sounded like music, grinding rocks or electronic beeps. Hyunwoo Kim waited near the presentation area with several large containers. As head chef of the human delegation, he had spent months preparing traditional Korean dishes for this moment. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cool air. He had cooked for presidents and kings on Earth, but never for an audience that could decide humanity's place in the galaxy. "Are you ready?" Ji-won asked him quietly. Hyunwoo nodded, though his hands shook slightly. "I brought our best dishes. Kimchi that fermented for 2 years, bulgogi made from the finest beef, and mandu, dumplings that my grandmother's grandmother would be proud of." Minji Lee, the human diplomat, joined them at the platform. She had studied alien cultures for 20 years and spoke 12 different galactic languages. Even she looked nervous. "Remember," she whispered, "we need their approval to trade our food products throughout the galaxy. Without it, Earth remains, isolated from galactic commerce." A deep sound like a gong filled the hall. All conversation stopped. A floating crystal approached the center platform. This was Elder Vex Mara, the council's chairman. His voice came from everywhere at once, created by sound waves bouncing off his crystal surfaces. "Today, we welcome the newest species to petition our council. The humans of the third planet in the Sol system request classification for their primitive food substances." Ji-won felt her face burn at the word primitive, but she kept her expression calm. This was diplomacy. She had to be patient. "Elder Vex Mara," she said, stepping forward with a respectful bow. "We are honored to present the culinary traditions of humanity. Our foods represent thousands of years of culture and innovation." The crystal being pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Innovation? How curious. Very well, human, show us these foods." Hyunwoo opened the first container. The smell of fermented cabbage, garlic, and spices filled the air immediately. He had prepared small portions of kimchi in individual bowls for the representatives to sample. The reaction was immediate and horrible. Several alien delegates made sounds of disgust. A group of insect-like krill began clicking their mandibles rapidly, which Minji knew meant they were extremely offended. One of the Nephilim actually moved backward in their containment suit. "What is that odor?" demanded Krill Ambassador Zekthor, his voice buzzing with revulsion. "It smells like rotting vegetation." "This is kimchi," Hyunwoo explained, his voice steady despite the insults. "It is fermented cabbage with garlic, ginger, and chili peppers. The fermentation process creates beneficial bacteria that help digestion and provide important nutrients." "Fermentation," repeated Elder Vex Mara. "You mean decay. You eat decayed plant matter." "Not decay," Ji-won interrupted. "Controlled fermentation is different from rotting. It preserves food and makes it healthier." But the aliens were not listening. Their disgust was obvious. Hyunwoo quickly moved to the second dish, hoping for a better reaction. He uncovered perfectly grilled strips of marinated beef, the bulgogi glistening with a sweet and savory glaze. "This is bulgogi," he said. "Beef marinated in soy sauce, garlic, pear, and sesame oil, then grilled over high heat." The Nephilim delegate spoke in their whispering voice. "You burn the flesh of animals and cover it in primitive plant secretions. How do you call this cuisine?" Hyunwoo's face reddened, but he continued. The final dish was his masterpiece. Fresh mandu dumplings, each, one hand folded that morning. The dough was thin and perfect, the filling a mixture of pork, vegetables, and seasonings that had been in his family for generations. "These are mandu," he said with quiet pride. "Dumplings filled with meat and vegetables, steamed to perfection. The recipe has been passed down in my family for over 200 years. Elder Vexmara floated closer to examine the dumplings. His crystal surface reflected the hall's lights as he scanned them with sensors built into his body. "Interesting," he said finally. "You wrap animal flesh and plant matter in a thin membrane of processed grain. Then you apply heat and moisture to cook it." "Yes, exactly," Hyunwoo said hopefully. "How primitive," the crystal being concluded. "You have taken perfectly good ingredients and rendered them nearly inedible through crude thermal processing." The hall erupted in sounds that could only be described as alien laughter. The krill clicked and buzzed. The Nephilim made soft whistling sounds. Even species that Jiwon could not identify seemed to be mocking the human presentation. Ambassador Zekthor stood on his 6 legs, his insect head tilting as he spoke. "Honored council members, I motion that we classify all human food substances as Class D nutritional matter. These crude preparations are unsuitable for civilized consumption." "Seconded," came voices from around the hall. Jiwon felt her heart sink. Class D was the lowest possible rating, reserved for foods barely safe enough for emergency survival. It was one step above toxic waste. "Wait," Minji called out desperately. "You have not even tasted our food. How can you judge without experiencing it?" Elder Vexmara's crystal form pulsed with what was definitely amusement now. "Ambassador Lee, we have advanced sensors that can analyze any substance completely. Tasting is unnecessary when we can detect every molecule, every chemical compound, every bacterial culture in your fermented waste." The vote was swift and unanimous. Every single alien species voted to classify human cuisine as Class D nutritional matter. Not one voice spoke in their defense. Jiwon stood frozen as the reality hit her. This classification would ban human food from all galactic trade routes. No human restaurant could operate on any alien world. Earth's agricultural products could never be exported beyond their solar system. Humanity would remain isolated, cut off from the galactic community's economic opportunities. But worse than the economic disaster was the humiliation. These aliens did not just dislike human food. They considered it disgusting, primitive, and barely edible. They had looked at thousands of years of human culinary tradition and declared it worthless. As the council session ended and aliens began leaving the hall, many passed by the human delegation with expressions of pity or disgust. Some made comments in their own languages, but the translation devices made their meaning clear enough. Poor primitives. How do they survive eating such things? Perhaps they will learn to prepare proper food eventually. Jiwon, Minji, and Hyunwoo stood alone on the platform, surrounded by the containers of food that had been rejected so completely. The kimchi still smelled wonderful to them. The bulgogi looked delicious. The mandu dumplings were perfect, each one a small work of art. But to the galaxy's most important culinary authority, their food was barely better than garbage. Hyunwoo picked up one of his grandmother's dumplings and bit into it slowly. The flavors exploded in his mouth just as they always did. Rich, complex, comforting. He could not understand how anyone could taste this and call it primitive. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. Jiwon looked around the empty hall where humanity had just suffered its greatest diplomatic defeat, but something in her eyes suggested she was not ready to give up. Not yet. 3 days had passed since the humiliation at the Galactic Culinary Council. Jiwon Park sat in her small quarters aboard the trade station, staring at the official rejection document on her desk. The words, Class D Nutritional Matter, seemed to glow with mockery every time she looked at them. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Minji Lee entered without waiting for permission, her arms full of thick books and data tablets. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept much since the council meeting. "I found something," Minji said, her voice tight with excitement and exhaustion. "Something the aliens never expected us to discover." She dropped the books on Jiwon's desk with a loud thud. Ancient texts written in dozens of alien languages covered the small surface. Some books looked so old that their pages cracked when touched. "What is all this?" Jiwon asked. "Galactic law books," Minji replied, opening the largest volume. "I have been reading for 3 days straight, learning about every rule, every regulation, every procedure the Council has used for the past 1,000 years. Jiwon leaned forward. As a military commander, she understood the importance of knowing your enemy's rules. "Did you find a way to appeal their decision?" Minji's tired face broke into a smile. "Better than an appeal. I found something called the Trial of Sustenance." She pointed to a page written in the flowing script of the ancient Veltar civilization. The translation device built into the book glowed softly as it converted the text to human language. "Listen to this," Minji said, reading aloud. "Any species may challenge a culinary classification through the Trial of Sustenance. In this trial, representatives from each species must survive for 30 galactic days on only their proposed foods while completing tasks of increasing difficulty." Jiwon felt her heart beat faster. Has anyone ever tried this trial? Only twice in galactic history, Minji admitted. Both times the challenging species failed within the first week. No one has ever successfully overturned a council decision. What happens if we fail? Minji's smile faded. Permanent banishment from all galactic food trade. Earth would be forbidden from ever presenting cuisine to the council again. The door chimed, and Hyunwoo Kim entered carrying a tray of steaming food. The smell of kimchi jjigae filled the room, making both women realize how hungry they were. They had barely eaten since the disaster at the council. "I thought you might be hungry," Hyunwoo said, setting down bowls of the spicy stew. "I made this from ingredients I brought from Earth. Real kimchi, real tofu, real flavors." As they ate, Minji explained what she had discovered. Hyunwoo listened, carefully, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "So we would have to survive on just 5 foods for 30 days?" he asked. 5 foods that we choose now," Minji confirmed, "and we have to perform physical and mental challenges while other species watch and judge." Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment, thinking. As a chef, he understood nutrition better than most people. 5 foods to keep a person healthy for 30 days. It could be done, but the choice would be critical. "The other species will bring their most advanced nutritional supplements," Jiwon said. "Perfect foods designed by scientists to provide everything a body needs. Maybe that is their weakness," Hyunwoo said slowly. "Perfect foods might be boring. Humans need variety, flavor, comfort. Our foods do more than just feed the body." A new voice joined the conversation. "He is right about that." They turned to see Do-hyun Choi standing in the doorway. The xenobiologist had been studying alien species for 15 years, learning how different bodies process different foods. His specialty was understanding how various creatures digested and used nutrients. "I have been analyzing the biological data from the council members," Do-hyun continued, entering the room. "Their digestive systems are much simpler than ours. Most aliens eat the same type of food every day for their entire lives." He sat down and activated a holographic display, showing the internal structure of various alien species. "Look at this. The Vextar absorb minerals directly through their crystal matrix. The Nephilim filter gases through specialized organs. The krill process everything into basic proteins." "What does that mean for us?" Jiwon asked. "It means they have never experienced what humans call flavor," Do-hyun explained. "They do not understand how different tastes can affect mood, energy, and mental function. Their foods are purely functional." The door chimed again. This time Sujin Nam entered, still wearing her military strategy uniform. She had been analyzing the political implications of the Council's decision for the past 3 days. "Commander," she said to Ji-won, "I have been studying the voting patterns of Council members. Something interesting emerged from the data." She activated her own holographic display, showing voting records from hundreds of previous Council decisions. The Council has become lazy. They have not faced a real challenge in over 200 years. Every species that comes before them either gets approved immediately or accepts rejection without question. "You think they are overconfident?" Ji-won said. "Absolutely," Sujin replied. "They expect humans to behave like every other species. Accept defeat and leave quietly. They have no idea what humans do when someone tells us we cannot do something." Ji-won stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, alien ships continued their endless dance of arrival and departure. Each vessel represented a species that had earned respect in the galactic community. Soon, humans might join them, or they might be banned forever from this magnificent diversity. "If we do this trial," she said without turning around, "we risk everything. If we fail, humanity becomes a galactic joke. No trade, no diplomacy, no future among the stars." "And if we do nothing?" Minji asked. "We become irrelevant," Ji-won admitted. "Earth remains isolated while every other world enjoys galactic commerce and culture." She turned back to face her team. These 5 people could decide humanity's future with their next decision. "Hyunwoo, can you really keep us healthy for 30 days on just 5 foods?" The chef thought carefully before answering. "Yes, but the choices must be perfect. We need foods that provide complete nutrition, store well, and can be prepared in many different ways." "What foods would you choose?" "Rice for carbohydrates and energy," Hyunwoo said immediately. "Kimchi for vegetables, probiotics and vitamins. Mandu dumplings for protein and variety. Gochujang for flavor and additional nutrients. And dried seaweed for minerals and omega fatty acids." Do-hyun nodded approvingly. Those 5 foods together could sustain human life indefinitely. More importantly, they represent the complexity of human cuisine. Each one can be prepared dozens of different ways. "The aliens will bring nutrient blocks and synthetic supplements," Sujin added. "Efficient but boring. After a few days they might start losing morale while we stay strong and creative." Minji looked through the legal documents. Again. "There is one more thing. The trial takes place on a survival planet. No modern technology, no prepared facilities. We have to cook over fires and sleep in shelters we build ourselves." That might actually help us, Ji-won realized. Humans have been cooking over fires for thousands of years. These aliens probably never cooked a meal in their lives. The 5 humans looked at each other in silence. They all understood what this moment meant. In the next few minutes, they would decide whether to risk everything on an impossible challenge or accept defeat and return to Earth with nothing. "I need to know right now," Ji-won said. "Are we going to let these aliens tell us our food is worthless? Are we going to accept that human culture has no value in the galaxy?" "No," Hyunwoo said firmly. "My grandmother's recipes are not primitive. Korean cuisine is not worthless. The science supports us," Do-hyun added. "Human dietary diversity is actually more advanced than their simple systems. Strategically, this is our only chance," Sujin said. "We have to fight now or accept permanent defeat." "The law is on our side," Minji concluded. "They have to accept our challenge if we make it officially." Ji-won nodded slowly. "Then we challenge them. Tomorrow morning, I will formally request the trial of sustenance." They spent the rest of the evening planning. Hyunwoo calculated exact portions of their 5 foods. Do-hyun researched the survival planet where the trial would take place. Sujin developed strategies for the challenges they would face. Minji prepared the legal documents that would force the council to accept their challenge. None of them mentioned the obvious truth. No species had ever succeeded in overturning a council decision. The aliens had thousands of years of experience and advanced technology. Humans had only their determination and their food. But sometimes that was enough. The next morning, Jiwon Park walked into the council chambers wearing her dress uniform. In her hand, she carried a formal challenge that would change everything. The real battle was about to begin. The transport ship dropped through the thick clouds of Kepler 442c, like a stone falling through water. Jiwon Park pressed her face against the small window, watching the alien planet's surface appear below them. Dense forests covered rolling hills, while strange purple rivers cut through valleys she had never seen before. "Landing in 2 minutes," the pilot announced in the mechanical voice that all translation devices used. Jiwon looked around the passenger compartment. 5 humans sat on one side, their faces tense but determined. On the other side, representatives from 5 alien species checked their equipment one final time. Each group had brought their 5 chosen foods and basic survival gear. The Vextar delegate, a crystal being called Morthek, glowed with confident blue light. His food containers held perfectly measured mineral supplements that would feed his silicon-based body. The Nephilim representative floated in her containment suit, gas canisters full of refined atmospheric compounds strapped to her back. "This will be educational," buzzed Ambassador Zekthor from the Krill delegation. His insect mandibles clicked as he spoke. "Watching primitives fail should teach the galaxy valuable lessons about proper nutrition." Hyunwoo Kim ignored the insult and checked his own containers one more time. Rice, kimchi, mandu dumplings, gochujang, and dried seaweed. 5 simple foods that had fed Korean families for generations. Next to the alien scientific supplements, they looked almost embarrassingly basic. The ship landed with a heavy thud. Mechanical doors opened with a hiss, letting in the planet's strange air. It smelled like flowers and metal, sweet but sharp. Jiwon took a deep breath and stepped outside. Kepler 442c was beautiful in an alien way. The grass was silver instead of green, and the trees had leaves that changed color as the wind moved through them. 3 small suns hung in a purple sky, casting everything in an orange glow that made the humans squint. "Welcome to your trial," announced Elder Vex Mara through the communication devices they all wore. The council chairman remained safely in orbit, watching through cameras and sensors. "You have 30 planetary days to survive on your chosen foods alone. Every 5 days you will face new challenges to test your physical and mental capabilities." A large area had been marked off, with energy barriers. Inside this zone, the 6 species would live and compete for the next month. No modern technology was allowed except for basic medical equipment and the communication devices. "Your first challenge begins now," Elder Vex Mara continued. "Build adequate shelter before nightfall. The temperature drops to -20 degrees, after dark." The alien representatives immediately began unpacking advanced but primitive tools. The Vextar delegate used his natural crystal formation to cut down trees with laser precision. The Nephilim created structures from compressed gas that hardened like metal. Each species worked with quick efficiency, their movements showing they had planned every detail. The humans looked at each other uncertainly. They had basic tools like axes and rope, but nothing as advanced as what the aliens possessed. "We need to work together," Jiwon said quietly. "Taehoon, you have the most survival experience. What should we do first?" Taehoon Yu had spent 15 years training soldiers in wilderness survival. His weathered face showed no panic as he surveyed their situation. "Find water first, then shelter materials. We can worry about perfect construction later." While Taehoon led Sujin and Do-hyun to scout for resources, Jiwon and Hyunwoo began unpacking their food supplies. The chef immediately started calculating portions and storage methods. "We need to make this last 30 days, Hyunwoo said, carefully dividing their rice into daily portions. "But we also need variety to keep our spirits up." "Can you really make different meals from the same 5 ingredients?" Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo smiled for the first time since landing. "Commander, Korean grandmothers have been feeding families through famines and wars for centuries. 5 good ingredients can become 50 different dishes if you know what you are doing." By evening, the differences between the groups were already obvious. The aliens had built efficient, functional shelters that looked like small factories. Everything was perfect, measured, and sterile. They ate their first meals of nutrient blocks and supplements with mechanical precision, consuming exactly what their bodies needed and nothing more. The human shelter looked rough by comparison. Taehoon had built a simple lean-to structure against a large boulder, using branches in their emergency tarp. It was not pretty, but it would keep them warm and dry. More importantly, their camp smelled amazing. Hyunwoo had built a small fire and was cooking rice in a metal pot they had brought. The kimchi sat in a separate container, its fermented smell mixing with wood smoke in a way that made all 5 humans feel homesick and comforted at the same time. "What is that odor?" demanded Morthek, his crystal form pulsing with irritation. The Vexter had no understanding of cooking smells, only chemical analysis. "Dinner," Jiwon replied simply. She watched Hyunwoo prepare their first meal on the alien planet. He cooked the rice perfectly, mixing it with small amounts of kimchi juice for flavor. A few pieces of dried seaweed went into the pot for minerals and taste. He even managed to steam 2 small mandu dumplings using the rice pot's lid and some water. The humans sat around their fire sharing the meal from metal bowls. Each bite tasted like home, like comfort, like the promise that they could survive anything together. The rice was filling, the kimchi was sharp and satisfying, the dumplings were rich with familiar flavors. "How do you feel?" Do-hyun asked after they finished eating. "Full," Soo-jin replied. "But more than full. Happy, I guess." "That is the difference," Do-hyun said, looking toward the alien camps. "They are consuming nutrition. We are eating food." The aliens finished their meals quickly and efficiently. No conversation, no lingering over flavors, no satisfaction beyond meeting biological requirements. Within minutes, they had cleaned their eating equipment and prepared for rest. The humans stayed around their fire longer, talking quietly and enjoying the warmth. Hyunwoo cleaned his cooking pot carefully, already planning tomorrow's meal. Taehoon added wood to keep the fire burning through the night. The others simply sat together, finding comfort in shared food and shared company. Day 1 complete. Elder Vexmara's voice crackled through their communication devices. "All participants remain healthy. Tomorrow's challenge will test your physical endurance." As the 3 suns set and alien night fell over Kepler 442c, the temperature dropped rapidly. The humans huddled closer to their fire, sharing warmth and quiet conversation. In the alien camps, efficient heating systems maintained perfect temperatures, while their occupants rested in solitary comfort. But something interesting was already happening that the watching council members could not measure with their instruments. The humans were bonding, growing stronger as a group through their shared meals and shared challenges. They faced the unknown together, finding strength in community that their individual rations could never provide. The aliens, despite their superior technology and perfect nutrition, remained isolated. Each representative focused only on their own survival, their own success, their own perfectly calculated needs. After 5 hours of alien night, Jiwon woke to check their fire. The coals still glowed red and warm. In the distance, she could see the lights from the alien shelters, each one an isolated beacon in the darkness. But around the human fire, her 4 companions slept peacefully together, sharing warmth and trust, in a way that no amount of perfect nutrition could create. Day 1 was over. 29 days remained. The real test was just beginning. Day 15 brought the worst storm Kepler 442c had seen in 50 years. Purple lightning split the alien sky while winds howled through the trial zone like screaming banshees. Rain fell sideways, driven by gusts that knocked over everything, not secured to the ground. Jiwon Park huddled inside their reinforced shelter, listening to the storm rage outside. Over the past 2 weeks, Taehoon had improved their simple lean-to into a proper survival structure. Thick walls made from clay and branches kept out most of the wind. A clever roof design channeled rainwater into collection containers. "How are the food supplies?" she asked Hyunwoo, who was preparing their midday meal over a small fire he had managed to keep burning despite the storm. "Good," he replied, stirring rice with kimchi juice and bits of seaweed. "Better than good, actually. I figured out how to make the flavors last longer by using different cooking methods each day." It was true. For 15 days, Hyunwoo had created different meals from their same 5 ingredients. Kimchi fried rice, seaweed soup with mandu, rice bowls with fermented vegetables and spicy gochujang sauce. Each meal tasted distinct and satisfying, keeping the humans well-fed and happy. The aliens were not doing as well. Through the storm, they could hear Morthek's crystal form resonating with stress frequencies. The Vextar delegate had been consuming his mineral supplements exactly as planned. But something was wrong. His normal blue glow had faded to a sickly purple color. His body is rejecting the monotony, Do-hyun explained quietly. Vextar biology is more complex than they admit. Even crystal beings need variety in their mineral intake. Sujin peered through a crack in their shelter wall. Look at the krill representative. Ambassador Zekthor sat motionless in his metal shelter, his 6 legs folded beneath him. For 3 days, the insect-like alien had barely moved. His mandibles no longer clicked with their usual arrogance. Protein poisoning, Do-hyun diagnosed. He has been eating the same concentrated protein blocks for 2 weeks. His system cannot process them efficiently anymore. The Nephilim representative was having the worst problems. Her gas-based biology required constant atmospheric pressure regulation. The storm was interfering with her containment suit systems, and her stored gas supplies were running dangerously low. Then disaster struck. A massive lightning bolt hit the energy barrier surrounding the trial zone. The protective field flickered and died, leaving all 6 camps exposed to the full fury of the storm. Worse, the electromagnetic pulse from the lightning strike damaged most of their equipment. The aliens panicked immediately. Their high-tech, food storage systems began failing without power. Perfect temperature controls shut down. Sterile containers cracked under pressure changes. Within hours, their carefully preserved nutritional supplements were spoiling in the alien weather. The humans had a different problem. Their simple storage methods were working perfectly. Clay pots kept their rice dry. Fermented kimchi actually improved in the changing conditions. Dried seaweed absorbed moisture from the air and became more flavorful. Their food supplies were not just surviving the storm, they were thriving in it. "We need to help them," Minji said, watching the alien camps through the rain. "Help our competition?" Sujin asked skeptically. "They have been insulting our food for 2 weeks. Let them solve their own problems." But Jiwon was already making a decision that would define humanity's character forever. "Do-hyun, what happens if the Nephilim representative dies?" "The trial ends immediately," he replied. "All species are disqualified for failing to maintain safe conditions." "Then we have no choice," Jiwon said firmly. "Hyunwoo, can you make something that might help their biology?" The chef thought for a moment. "Maybe. Kimchi has complex nutrients that might stabilize gas-based systems, and mandu broth has minerals that could help." Against all logic and strategy, the 5 humans ventured into the storm. They fought through wind and rain to reach the failing Nephilim shelter, where they found the alien representative collapsed and barely conscious. Her containment suit was cracked, leaking the specialized gases she needed to survive. Without immediate help, she would die within the hour. "Please," Minji said in the Nephilim language, kneeling beside the failing alien. "Let us help you." The alien's response was barely a whisper. "Your food will poison me." "No," Hyunwoo said gently. "Our food will save you." Working quickly despite the storm, he prepared a small portion of kimchi broth mixed with nutrients from their precious mandu dumplings. The combination created a liquid rich in probiotics, minerals, and complex organic compounds. "Trust us," Jiwon said simply. The Nephilim representative had no choice. Her own supplies were gone and death was approaching fast. With trembling movements, she opened a feeding port in her containment suit and consumed the human food. The effect was immediate and miraculous. Her gas-based biology, starved for variety and complex nutrients, absorbed the kimchi broth like a desert absorbing rain. Color returned to her translucent form. Her movements became stronger and more coordinated. "How?" she whispered in amazement. "Fermentation creates compounds that do not exist in nature," Do-hyun explained. Your biology has been craving those missing elements for 15 days. Word of the rescue spread quickly through the galactic observers watching from orbit. The species that had mocked human food for being primitive had just been saved by that same food. More importantly, humanity had risked their own victory to help a competitor who had insulted them. The storm continued for 2 more days, but everything had changed. Morthek approached the human camp on day 17, his crystal form dim with embarrassment. "I require assistance," he admitted reluctantly. His mineral supplements had spoiled completely when his storage systems failed. Worse, 2 weeks of eating. The same compounds had created dangerous imbalances in his silicon-based biology. Hyunwoo studied the alien's condition carefully. "Seaweed," he said finally. "Dried seaweed contains trace minerals your body needs, but your supplements were missing." They shared their precious seaweed with the Vextar delegate, watching his crystal form brighten as his body absorbed nutrients. It had been lacking. Within hours, Morthek was healthier than he had been since the trial started. Ambassador Zekthor was the last to ask for help. The proud Krill had watched his fellow aliens recover with human food while he continued to weaken. Finally, on day 18, he approached their camp with his mandibles clicking in distress. "My protein blocks have become toxic," he admitted. "I am dying slowly." "Rice," Hyunwoo said immediately. "Your system needs carbohydrates to process proteins properly. Korean cuisine balances proteins with starches for optimal digestion." They prepared a simple meal of rice mixed with small pieces of their mandu dumplings. The krill representative ate slowly, his alien digestive system working to process food that was actually designed to nourish rather than just provide raw nutrients. By day 20, an amazing transformation had occurred in the trial zone. All 6 species were sharing meals around the human campfire. The aliens had abandoned their failing high-tech solutions in favor of simple, effective human cooking methods. More importantly, they were talking to each other for the first time, sharing stories, comparing experiences, learning about each other's cultures through the universal language of shared food. "I do not understand," Morthek said one evening, his crystal form glowing with contentment after a meal of kimchi rice. "Our nutritional scientist calculated every compound needed for optimal survival. Why did our perfect foods fail while your simple preparations succeeded?" Hyunwoo smiled, stirring gochujang into the communal rice pot. "Because nutrition is not just about chemicals and calories. Food is about life, variety, adaptation, and care. Your scientists made one mistake," Do-hyun added. "They assumed that perfect meant simple, but life is complex. Bodies need surprise, variety, and nutrients that work together in unexpected ways." The Nephilim representative, now fully recovered, floated closer to their fire. "There is something else. When I consumed your food, I felt something I had never experienced before." "What was that?" Ji-won asked. "Comfort," the alien replied softly. "Your food did not just feed my body. It made me feel cared for, welcomed, safe." "How is that possible?" Minji looked around the fire at the 6 different species sharing a meal, together. "Because human food is not just about the person eating it. It is about the person who prepared it with love, the community that shares it, and the culture that created it over thousands of years." "Every recipe tells a story," Hyunwoo added, serving portions to each alien representative. "My grandmother's mandu recipe carries the love of all the mothers who perfected it before her. When you eat it, you taste that history." Elder Vexmara's voice crackled through their communication devices that evening. "This trial has produced unexpected results. All participants remain healthy, but not in the way we predicted." "What happens now?" Ji-won asked. "You have proven that your food can sustain life," the council chairman replied. "But the final test remains. 10 days of increasingly difficult challenges while maintaining your dietary restrictions." The humans and aliens looked at each other around their shared fire. They had started as competitors, but they had become something else entirely. They had become a community. Day 29 arrived with ground-shaking violence that no one had expected. Kepler 442c's three suns aligned in a rare configuration that pulled massive tectonic forces through the planet's core. The ground split open in jagged cracks while boulders tumbled from cliffs like deadly rain. Jiwon Park grabbed Hyunwoo's arm as another earthquake threw them both to the ground. Around their camp, the other species struggled to maintain balance while the alien world tried to tear itself apart beneath their feet. "Everyone stay together," she shouted over the rumbling noise. "Help each other move to higher ground." The past 10 days had been the hardest of the entire trial. Each morning brought new challenges designed to test their limits. Obstacle courses that required climbing, jumping, and crawling through difficult terrain. Mental puzzles that demanded quick thinking while exhausted. Endurance tests that pushed every species to their breaking point. But the 6 species had faced every challenge as a team. When the Vextar delegate's crystal form cracked during a rock climbing exercise, the humans helped carry him to safety. When Sujin twisted her ankle during a running challenge, Ambassador Zekthor used his 6 legs to help her continue. The Nephilim representative shared her hovering ability to help others cross dangerous gaps. They had become more than competitors. They had become friends. Now the planet itself was testing them in a way no one had planned. "The shelter is collapsing," Taehoon yelled, pointing to their camp as another earthquake hit. Their carefully built structure was sliding down a hillside that had never existed until 5 minutes ago. Worse than losing shelter was losing their food. After 29 days of careful rationing, their supplies were nearly exhausted. Hyunwoo had calculated everything perfectly to last exactly 30 days. They had rice for 1 more meal, enough kimchi for 2 people, a few pieces of dried seaweed, some gochujang paste, and 3 mandu dumplings. That was all that remained between them and failure on the final day of the trial. "This way," Morthek called, his crystal form glowing with urgency. "Higher ground beyond those rocks." They helped each other climb toward safety as the earthquake continued. Jiwon supported the Nephilim representative when her containment suit was damaged by falling stones. Doyun and Ambassador Zekthor worked together to clear a path through loose boulders. But as they reached the safe area, Hyunwoo made a terrible discovery. "The food containers," he said quietly, staring back at their destroyed camp. "They are buried under the rock slide." All their remaining supplies were trapped beneath tons of stone and earth. Without excavation equipment, the food was lost forever. They had 1 day remaining in the trial with nothing to eat. "We can survive 1 day without food," Sujin said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Not with the final challenge tomorrow," Jiwon replied grimly. "Elder Vexamara said it would be the most demanding test yet. We need energy and strength." "Wait," Hyunwoo said, checking his pockets carefully. "I always carry emergency supplies when cooking." He pulled out a small cloth bundle that had been tucked safely in his jacket during the earthquake. Inside were 3 mandu dumplings, slightly crushed but perfectly edible. Their outer dough was torn, but the meat and vegetable filling remained fresh. 6 beings stared at the 3 small dumplings. For humans, they represented the last connection. To home, the final taste of their grandmother's recipes. The difference between success and failure. For the aliens, they had become something precious as well. A food that had saved their lives and taught them about community. 3 dumplings cannot feed 6 people, the Nephilim representative said sadly. "Then we divide them equally," Jiwon said. "Small portions, but something for everyone." They were preparing to share the precious dumplings when a sound made them all freeze. A weak clicking noise came from behind a pile of rocks near the edge of their safe area. "Help me." The voice was barely audible, but they recognized it immediately. Ambassador Zekthor was missing. In the chaos of the earthquake, no one had noticed that the Krill representative had not made it to safety with the group. They found him trapped under a heavy stone slab, his insect body crushed and broken. Green fluid leaked from cracks in his exoskeleton, showing that internal injuries were slowly killing him. "I fell during the climb," he whispered. "My legs are crushed. I cannot move." Taehoon and Dohyun worked together to lift the stone, but the damage was already done. Ambassador Zekthor's body was failing rapidly. Worse, he had not eaten anything in 2 days. His remaining protein supplies had been lost even before the earthquake, and his alien biology was shutting down from starvation and injury. "You need nutrients immediately," Do-Yun said, examining the dying alien. "Without food, you will not survive another hour." Ambassador Zekthor's compound eyes looked up at the humans who had saved him twice before. "I have insulted your food. I called your culture primitive. You owe me nothing." "That is not how humans think," Ji-won said quietly. She looked at the 3 mandu dumplings in Hyunwoo's hand. These were the last food they had. Tomorrow's final challenge would determine whether humanity earned respect in the galactic community or faced permanent exile. Without these dumplings, they might not have the strength to succeed. But Ambassador Zekthor was dying. "Hyunwoo," she said softly, "can you prepare something that might save him?" The chef did not hesitate. "Yes. Mandu broth with all 3 dumplings. The protein and nutrients might be enough to stabilize his condition." "That is all our remaining food," Sujin pointed out. "If we give it to him, we have nothing left for tomorrow." "I know," Ji-won replied. "Commander," Ambassador Zekthor whispered, "you cannot sacrifice your chance of victory for me. I am just one alien who treated you badly." Ji-won knelt beside the injured Krill, her decision already made. "You are not just one alien anymore. You are our friend, and humans do not let friends die when they can help." Hyunwoo was already building a small fire with their remaining fuel. He carefully prepared the 3 dumplings in a rich broth, using every technique his grandmother had taught him to extract maximum nutrients from minimal ingredients. The smell of cooking mandu filled the air one final time. Rich, comforting, full of love and tradition. The other aliens watched in amazement as the humans prepared to give away their last hope of success to save someone who had once mocked them. "I do not understand your species," Morthek said, his crystal form pulsing with confused emotions. "This action makes no logical sense." "Logic is not everything," Minji replied. "Sometimes caring is more important than winning." When the broth was ready, Hyunwoo fed it carefully to Ambassador Zekthor. The alien's mandibles clicked weakly as he consumed the warm liquid and tender dumplings. Almost immediately, strength began returning to his broken body. The nutrients from the handmade food gave his biology exactly what it needed to begin healing. Within an hour, Ambassador Zekthor was stable enough to move. His legs remained damaged, but he was no longer dying. The humans had saved his life with their last food. "Why?" he asked as they helped him to a more comfortable position. "Why sacrifice everything for me?" Hyunwoo cleaned his cooking pot slowly, knowing it might be the last time he would prepare Korean food on this alien world, because that is what food means to humans. It is not just nutrition, it is love. It is community. It is the promise that no one should go hungry when others can help. The 5 humans sat together as alien night fell over Kepler 442c. Tomorrow would bring the final challenge, and they would face it on empty stomachs. They had given away their last chance of victory to save a friend. But around their dying fire, surrounded by alien representatives whose lives they had saved, they felt something more valuable than success. They felt proud to be human. Elder Vexmara's voice crackled through their communication devices one final time. "Day 29 complete. All participants have survived. Tomorrow's challenge will determine the trial's outcome." "We will be ready," Ji-won said quietly. She did not know how they would find the strength to face the final test without food. But she knew that whatever happened tomorrow, humanity had already proven something more important than the quality of their cuisine. They had proven the quality of their character. The last dumpling was gone, but the values it represented would last forever. Day 30 dawned clear and bright over Kepler 442c. The 3 alien suns hung in a perfect triangle formation, casting warm light across the trial zone where 6 different species prepared for their final challenge. Ji-won Park stood with her, 4 human companions, feeling the emptiness in her stomach that came from 20 hours without food. They had given their last meal to save Ambassador Zekthor, and now they would face the trial's conclusion on nothing but determination and pride. Around them, The alien representatives looked healthier than they had in weeks. The Nephilim delegate floated with renewed energy after days of sharing human food. Morthek's crystal form glowed with bright blue light, his mineral deficiencies cured by seaweed nutrients. Even Ambassador Zekthor, despite his injured legs, clicked his mandibles, with something that might have been contentment. Final challenge commencing, Elder Vex Mara announced through their communication devices. Complete the obstacle course within the time limit while maintaining perfect coordination as a team. All participants must finish together, or all participants fail. The course that materialized before them was the most difficult yet. Rope climbs that required pure upper body strength, balance beams suspended over deep pits, puzzle walls that demanded quick thinking and cooperation, memory challenges that tested mental clarity under physical stress. 30 minutes, the council chairman added. Begin now. The 6 beings looked at each other with understanding that had grown over 30 days of shared hardship. They were no longer representatives of different species competing for recognition. They had become a family fighting for each other's success. Humans first on the rope climb, Ambassador Zekthor said immediately. You are weakened by hunger. We will support you. No, Jiwan replied firmly. We start together, we finish together. That is what teams do. They attacked the first obstacle as one unit. When Sujin's strength failed halfway up the rope, Morthek used his crystal form to create handholds that helped her continue. When the Nephilim representative struggled with the balance beam, Tehun talked her across with patient encouragement. The 2 puzzle wall required all 6 minds working in harmony. Different species brought different ways of thinking to the problem. The humans provided creative solutions. The Vextar offered mathematical precision. The Krill contributed pattern recognition. The Nephilim added spatial awareness that their gas-based biology made possible. But it was during the memory challenge that something extraordinary happened. Each participant had to remember and recite a complex sequence of alien symbols while running through a maze. The humans, weakened by hunger, began making mistakes that would doom the entire group. I cannot remember the sequence, Hyunwoo gasped, stopping in the middle of the maze. His empty stomach and exhausted mind refused to function properly. Then we will remember for you, Morthek said simply. The alien representatives began calling out the symbols that the humans were forgetting, not just the answers but explanations and memory tricks to help their human friends succeed. They were sacrificing their own advantage to help the species that had saved their lives. With 15 minutes remaining, they reached the final obstacle, a cliff face that had to be climbed by the entire team simultaneously. Ropes, handholds, and cooperation were the only tools available. This is impossible, the Nephilim representative whispered. Some of us cannot climb. Ambassador Zekthor's legs are injured. I cannot maintain form on a vertical surface. Then we carry each other, Jiwan said. What followed was the most beautiful display of interspecies cooperation in galactic history. Tehun and Doyun used their climbing experience to anchor ropes for everyone else. Morthek created crystal handholds at perfect intervals. Sujin and Minji supported Ambassador Zekthor's weight, while he used his remaining good legs to help climb. Most amazingly, the Nephilim representative compressed her gaseous form into a small container that Hyunwoo carried on his back, despite his weakness from hunger. She guided him up the cliff face with whispered directions, her alien senses detecting the safest path. They reached the top with 30 seconds to spare. 6 exhausted beings collapsed together at the finish line, gasping for breath, but triumphant. They had completed the impossible challenge through pure teamwork and mutual support. Trial concluded, Elder Vex Mara announced. All participants have survived 30 days and completed every challenge. This result is unprecedented in galactic history. The transport ships arrived within hours to carry them back to Galactic Trade Station Omega-7. But the 6 representatives refused to separate. They traveled together, sharing stories and planning for a future that none of them had imagined possible. The council chamber was packed when they arrived. The same beings who had mocked human food 30 days ago now watched with curiosity and Respect Elder Vex Mara floated to the center platform, his crystal form reflecting lights from around the chamber. The trial of sustenance has produced results that challenge our understanding of nutrition, survival, and civilization itself. He activated a holographic display showing biological data from all 6 participants. Every species not only survived their 30-day trial but achieved better health markers than when they began. This outcome defies our scientific models. Murmurs of amazement rippled through the watching crowd. No species had ever improved during a survival trial. Most barely managed to maintain basic health with their carefully designed nutritional supplements. Furthermore, Elder Vexmara continued, the alien participants voluntarily shared human food despite no requirement to do so. They report experiencing sensations and satisfaction that their own cuisine never provided. Ambassador Zekthor stood on his healing legs, addressing the council that had once laughed at human food. Honored members, I must speak truth about what we discovered on Kepler 442c. Human cuisine is not primitive, it is the most advanced food system we have encountered. Shocked silence filled the chamber. A Krill representative calling human food advanced was like a star declaring itself cold. Their fermented vegetables contain beneficial bacteria that our sterile supplements lack, Ambassador Zekthor continued. Their varied preparations prevent the nutritional imbalances that plague our single-compound diets. Most importantly, their food creates emotional satisfaction that enhances both mental and physical health. Morthek stepped forward, his crystal form glowing with conviction. I analyzed every molecule of human cuisine with my most precise instruments. The complexity is extraordinary. Each dish contains thousands of compounds working together in ways our nutritional scientists never imagined. But the greatest discovery, added, the Nephilim representative, was not scientific. It was cultural. Human food is designed not just to feed individuals but to build communities. Every meal is an act of love. Every shared dish a bond between beings. Elder Vexmara looked directly at the human delegation. Commander Park, your species has demonstrated that food classification cannot be based on chemical analysis alone. You have shown us dimensions of nutrition that our instruments cannot measure. Jiwan stood before the council that had once rejected them completely. Elder Vexmara, we came here seeking approval for our cuisine. We found something more valuable. We found friendship with species we never expected to understand. The humans saved our lives, Morthek declared to the watching council, not once but repeatedly. When our perfect foods failed, they shared their simple ingredients. When we were dying, they gave us their last meal. They taught us that food is not just fuel, the Nephilim representative added. It is culture, memory, love, and community combined into something that nourishes more than just the body. Hyunwoo stepped forward, still weak from their final sacrifice but standing proud. Honored council members, Korean cuisine represents thousands of years of mothers feeding their families through war, famine, and hardship. Every recipe carries the wisdom of survival and the promise that no one should go hungry alone. Elder Vexmara consulted with other council members through rapid crystal communications. The chamber remained silent as the most important decision in galactic culinary history was debated in frequencies humans could not hear. Finally, the council chairman returned to the center platform. The Galactic Culinary Council hereby rejects the classification of human cuisine as Class D nutritional matter, he announced. Relief flooded through the human delegation, but Elder Vexmara was not finished. Furthermore, we reject all existing classification systems as inadequate. Human food has demonstrated qualities that our current categories cannot describe. He paused, his crystal form pulsing with what might have been excitement. Therefore, the Council creates an entirely new classification. Class S Soulful Cuisine, reserved for foods that nourish not only the body but the spirit of community itself. Human cuisine becomes the first and founding member of this highest category. The chamber erupted in sounds that could only be described as galactic applause. Representatives from dozens of species created their own versions of celebration. Crystal beings chimed like bells. Gas creatures whistled in harmony. Even the proud krill clicked their mandibles in approval. But the council recognizes that this new classification requires new understanding. Elder Vexmara continued. We propose the First Intergalactic Food Festival, where